Hello and welcome to A Break with Black Women Part 2, and today's topic is all about colourism. I can hear you asking what is colourism, so I've written it down so I can get it absolutely perfect. Colourism is prejudice or discrimination against individuals with a dark skin tone, including among people of the same ethnic or racial group. Hi guys, today with me we have
Miss Roberts.
Miss Sobers.
Miss Ali.
Well, there was 4 clips to look at, and the first one was the models. Samira, I know you had a quick look at the models. What did you think about what they were saying about the makeup and there not being any makeup for them or any of that?
So I find it hard myself to buy makeup because it's very difficult to get a shade, especially foundation, concealer, that's right for me. I understand exactly where they're coming from. It must, obviously I don't wear makeup day to day, but for them it must be hard because it's their job. It's what they do. Somebody else is putting makeup on for them, but they're so used to putting it on lighter skin. I understand how they feel. I never really thought about it. I always thought, well, this isn't for us. Let me just make do with what I can. Let me find my best fit. And there's this running joke on the internet that if a Somali girl or an East African girl goes into MAC, they're always given the same shade, NC42, no matter what. So if you're East African and you've been given that shade in MAC, it's because that's what they've been trained to do, to give you that.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it's actually a thing. So it wasn't until Rihanna came out with her Fenty Beauty line that there was so much fuss around foundation colours and concealer colours, etc.
It's funny you should mention the Fenty Beauty line, because I'm not really a big makeup fan, as you can tell. And I was actually talking to my friend about discussing this colourism topic, and she said to me, oh please, you have to talk about the lack of dark makeup. So I said, what are you talking about? There is dark makeup. The Fenty Beauty line, Rihanna's new line, I'm sure that has. She said, no, you're missing the point. And I did a bit of research, and here's what I found out. On this side of the spectrum, you have light. But on this side of the spectrum, you don't have dark. In fact, we have light on that side and deep on this side.
Deep.
Deep. What shade is deep? And joining us now is
Miss Gordon. Hi, everybody. Mrs. Ernest.
Hi, nice to have you come and join us. We were just talking about makeup ranges, and I think it was Miss Ali that mentioned Fenty. And what I realised from a friend of mine, not my own experience of course, is that Fenty's makeup doesn't actually do the whole, well it does do the whole range, but there's an anomaly. Most makeup ranges will say the shade light, but on the other spectrum, they won't actually say the shade dark. So even though that makeup brand is supposed to be something for us to use, there's still a stigma attached when it comes to the darker skin. And I just find that absolutely incredible that we could actually, get to that point. I think that's so sad. There is a makeup brand that has golden dark, but in my research, I couldn't actually find no dark makeup for dark skinned people that was referred to as dark.
Well, I feel like the shift in names in terms of calling it deep rather than dark is because I think for a long time the connotations of dark has been used to insult black women. So there's light, which I think in a lot of cultures, Asian cultures, Caribbean cultures, African cultures, light is seen as, the utmost, something to aspire to, really.
We, growing up in Jamaica, there is colourism. And I grew up being the darker of the two. So there was me and my twin. We're really twins, we're cousins, and we're really, really close. And I was always very aware that my cousin was the more beautiful of the two, because that's what you would think, because she's the lighter of the two. Would she have better experiences because of the tone of her skin? Absolutely. Would she be complimented on? Absolutely. Now, in terms of makeup, I'm not one that wears makeup. So when it came to buying makeup, I literally did not have a clue. So you telling me that there's dark and there's deep and there's light, didn't have a clue. It's astonishing that in this day and age, we still have to battle with trying to find the right shade. And sometimes I notice that women don't write the right shade, and they're kind of light. When they take a photograph, their face is completely different to their neck. And I was always afraid of that, so I kind of stayed away from that kind of makeup because you just didn't know what was the right shade.
I think what is even more interesting is obviously what you're describing is something accidental. But I'm wondering if some of that is not even deliberate to make them look lighter.
Interesting.
I think in terms of makeup, so I've always been quite interested in makeup, but I didn't get into wearing makeup until I was about probably 21 years old, and that's all because of accessibility. So I don't know if you noticed, if you go to Superdrug or Boots, they have, for example, foundations that you can get for £5. So at the time, you know, if you get pocket money, you can afford to experiment maybe as a teenager. But again, I'm quite light, and they didn't even cater for shades as dark as mine. So you couldn't afford that. At the time, when I was a teenager, the only makeup brands that were really doing anything close to our skin tones were things like MAC, Bobbi Brown, and I mean, those foundations are about £30 per bottle, and I think as a teenager, I can't afford to buy
Of course.
makeup that actually represents and suits me. All that's available is makeup that I can afford, but has nothing to do with my shade or my complexion, and I think that's quite a big issue.
So back in the day, I mean, you're talking about your experience. Back in the day, we didn't have no makeup. Like makeup for us, you had one dark red lipstick. What was you saying? You were saying something about that.
Back in my days, in the 70s, our makeup came from Woolworths, black cherry. It was the blackest, darkest, reddish, cherryish lipstick you could think of. We had no foundation. Don't even know if mascara was around then. We had nothing. But when they did bring out makeup, it was Floyd Roberts foundation, and you couldn't get it. Only way you could find it, you couldn't get it in the normal stores. You'd go to Harrods and buy it, and the black makeup was at the back of the store.
Even something as basic as tights, they were flesh coloured.
Yes.
And flesh was not dark skin.
No.
Flesh was just for one colour skin. But even that, let's move it right on. Plasters. Plasters are flesh coloured.
Yeah.
But for whose flesh?
Yeah.
The whole point of a plaster is to disguise it against your arm.
Yeah.
The other plasters they do have is actually translucent plasters. They cost the earth. So those are the things. When you're talking about colorism, it is so deep. I don't know if you managed to see the video clip with the little children. That's the one that I found so disturbing. When those little children were talking about how they felt about being black, and from their opinion, who was the children that were always in trouble? Who was the children that you'd want your child to play with? Did you manage to watch that, Charlene?
Yeah, I did, and you know, back to what you were saying, Melissa, regarding the connotations. You know, it had connotations of, you know, ugliness and being dirty, being filthy and unintelligent, and that was very heart-wrenching. Actually, it was very, very difficult for me to watch, because as an aunt of a beautiful niece, I don't want her thinking that she's less than, unintelligent, not beautiful, you know. So I think it's so important to really watch the language that we use. And I think a few years ago I heard some students calling each other bleak. Oh, you're so bleak. You're so bleak. Bleak. That's it. That's the one. And I had to stop and just challenge them. I'm like, two of you are of the same race, the same skin tone. You know, they weren't fair. Two dark skinned young people, but calling each other derogative, you know, words. It was so, so embarrassing for one, but also very disappointing. Very disappointing. They think so low of each other to speak of each other in those terms.
I mean, for me, when I was growing up, I just felt I really wasn't really interested. I mean, I was dealing with racism, of like really overt racism, and when it came to colorism, I was under the illusion that it was about slavery. So the house slave was usually of a lighter complexion, and they could stay in the house because they're probably the kith and kin of that slave master anyway. And the other darker slaves would have to work the field. So I thought all of this colorism amongst the same race stemmed from that. Until I started really understanding it runs through a lot of races. And one of the video clips was about an Asian girl talking about her experiences. But there are many other races that also feel, my gosh, I don't want you to be with anyone dark. Try and be with a lighter skinned person. And I just don't know where this whole connotation actually begun, where light is seen as better. And it was a bit of a shame what Stormzy, did you look at the tweet from Stormzy?
That he
What did you
deleted
think
very
about
quickly.
that?
I was really sad to hear that Stormzy had said that. I mean, he's come a long way.
Come a long way.
And he's doing really great things now in the community. But at that time, if young ladies who are supporting him are seeing that, what message is it sending? And especially since he also is a dark-skinned man as well, what message are you sending about your children that you're going to have, your mother, your sister? You know, it's not a good message. So for me personally, it's about making sure we love who we are in every skin that we're in every tone that we have, and that is what we want to achieve. And if you're not there yet, we're going to get there. You know, little by little, I think with this Black Lives Movement matters, and you see lots of different shades of people celebrating their skin tone, I think we're going to get there.
And hopefully with these kinds of conversations, and when you join a break of Black women, you will actually be able to discuss these things in your form class. So, let's have some honest conversations in your form class. How do you feel about colorism? Does it exist in your culture? What would it take for you not to try and perfect your skin shade and just love the skin you're in?